All right, welcome to Eli Sports Network, and I am Matt Baide, joined alongside by Yelm football coach Jason Ronquillo. Jason, welcome to Eli Sports Network, and I'll just start with the first question. Right now, you guys should be out there playing football, practicing right now. How odd is it right now that you guys are not out there playing football in the middle of the season right now?
It's real tough. It's tough for the kids, coaches, the whole community. Everybody's struggling because everybody's watching it on TV and you're hearing around the country other states are playing, but we're not. And so, you get mixed emotions about it because you're not sure like what's right and what's wrong. Obviously, you want to keep everybody safe. That's the most important thing. But, keeping everybody safe while watching everybody else do what you love to do, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
Now, what year is this coaching for you at Yelm?
It's my 7th year at Yelm.
And I mean, I'm sure you've had to deal with a lot of adversity throughout your time there. How much do you see this sort of pandemic and the new season that's going to be coming up for you? How much do you see this as adversity for your team to just kind of overcome this and still have a good season once you have one?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hurdle. Don't get me wrong. Everybody's going to deal with a different size of hurdle, I think. The size of the roadblock in front of the teams will come down to culture and how much you've built in. I think if your culture, if your kids are used to working out on their own, if your kids are used to being driven, with groups of people and the leadership's good, I think teams that have better leadership are going to do well during this time. If you have good leaders on your team that can organize and get guys going on their own and, are self-motivated. And I think those teams are going to do well come February if we actually get a season. The teams that'll struggle is where maybe the leadership hasn't been developed yet, or there's new staff getting put together. Feel real bad for the new hires. The new hires that are coming in year one, they're hooting and hollering, getting their staff together. They're feeling good, and all of a sudden they get shut down. Those teams, they might not struggle. You never know. If the leadership is already installed in the program, they might do well. But it could hurt teams, not having that clear direction on what they do in the off season and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, you mentioned the culture. What is your team kind of doing right now? You mentioned, lifting the off season, that sort of stuff. How much are you able to kind of communicate with your guys, and what are they doing to kind of keep themselves in shape for when the season does come around?
Well, hopefully they're all working out. We're not offering here anything at the school here. But I do know that our team leadership they've created their own little 7-on-7 team. And as a matter of fact, they were supposed to go play this weekend down in it's like an Oregon/Southwest Washington league ran by a company called eForce. So they've been practicing on their own. I think there's close to 20 guys. It's a varsity club thing only. Practicing on their own and getting ready for that. So they've been doing that twice a week at least for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And so I do know the skill guys are doing that. And I do know like our leadership kids are, the linemen, they've all been working out together. They've been fortunate enough to have either a gym membership or a player has, equipment at their house, and they've been getting together and doing work. I have a fitness app that's called Platform that we use. That's new to our program, and that gives our kids an opportunity to, like, if you don't have a program but you have a gym that you want to work out in, we can give you a program and you can have access to that. So the leadership has been stepping it up here in Yelm, which is, it's not ideal. We're not in an ideal situation. Nobody likes where we're at right now. But you take the situation that you got and you play the hand that you're dealt. And I think our kids are doing the best that they can with it.
Yeah, you mentioned some of your skill guys are doing some 7-on-7 stuff. Do you imagine that it's going to be a little bit, they're kind of doing their own thing right now and kind of, maybe probably coming up plays and executing them differently to play on 7-on-7 is a different game than playing 11-on-11 with pads.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's going to be a difficult transition for them to get right back to the 11-on-11, or are you just expecting your guys to be ready to go day one?
Well, number one is when I watch these kids do this, I just love that the chemistry that they're building. The chemistry is number one. I mean, if they weren't doing that, they're sitting behind a screen all day and then working out on their own and really not getting any kind of chemistry at all. So right now they're working out together. They're building a little bit of team chemistry because they're getting to know each other outside of the coaches. They're just doing it on their own. So they can they can BS and have fun and say what they want without getting in trouble, you know. So they're building that camaraderie. Number two is like they're staying fit. I mean, you're sprinting, you're running around, you're staying fit. All the X's and O's and the small details that come with having to fix, I'm okay with that. You know, we'll fix that stuff later. As long as, you know, they're staying together, creating that chemistry, staying fit, working out. That's all we can do right now. The X's and O's, we'll figure that stuff out later.
I want to go back to last year a little bit. You had that a play-in game of the state tournament that was pretty big, and then you had that close loss to Kennewick in the state playoffs. You went 7-4 last season, so overall a great season. But looking at how I'm just going to focus on that last game. I mean, looking back on it, I'm sure it was an exciting game to be a part of. But how tough was it to be on the losing end of that game against a good Kennewick team?
Tough, real tough. I still think about it to this day. It'll probably keep haunting me until we start playing again. Yeah, you think about it all the time. It's the losses that are always that make you lose sleep at night because you just see things that happen within the game that you just wish they were different, which you can't change or anything, but you can build on it and learn from it. Yeah, I mean, it was a tough loss. Everybody dealt with it differently, and you know, me being the head coach, I'm the head of the snake. It hurts me the most. Of course, I wish we would have been in a different situation, but that it is what it is.
Looking through some of your roster before this interview, looks like you lost your senior quarterback, your senior running back. I'm sure a lot of guys played both sides of the ball. Who do you see stepping up into these skill positions this year, and do you see them being leaders right away?
Yeah, you know what? Our running back crew will be real good, starting with Sean Rowetter. He was our middle linebacker last year. He's a stud. You know, we had Carson Amend, who was an all-league player last year, and Sean's going to fit right in. You know, Sean, we could always count on Sean to run the ball for us. And, you know, outside of Sean, we got some really good guys that are fighting for some playing time once we get that rolling with, William Corretto, who's a young guy, but he's super athletic and really fast. And so we've got some guys at the running back spot that we can fill. The quarterback spot, you know, it's such a intricate, detailed position that, right now is really hurting us, to be honest with you, not having a quarterback that I can talk to on a daily basis about, practice, just talk to daily about the ins and outs of what he's seeing visually, and not to be able to do that and think that in February we've got to go fast and get as much information in his mind. Anybody that's getting a new quarterback that's going to start the year, this season's going to hurt that particular position the most, I think. Because like O-linemen, running backs, receivers, you can always work on technique and you can do all that stuff. But the quarterback needs to see things. He needs to see things. He needs to be successful. He needs to fail. He needs to learn from his failures. And there's so many that go into just his eyes that we'll really miss at that position. Our line, we're going to have some really good players coming back. I think our line will be probably our most experienced group. We did lose some really, really good players on the line of scrimmage, but we returned some really good players as well.
I want to mention one of those players. I hope I say his name right. Dylan Jim to guard. One of your top offensive linemen has quite a few offers from places. Is he going to be the leader and the anchor of that line, or what's that kind of shaping up to be like?
Yeah, so he, he's been starting for us since he's been a sophomore. He verbally committed to Cal. He's going to, he's a stud for us. So he'll be our anchor, and he's been leading the pack all summer with communication with the younger guys and getting the linemen going. And he's just a great person in general, great leader in general. And, I can always rely on him to get a message across to everybody else. So he's a leader in all facets, the classroom, the field, or whatever. But yeah, he'll be our cog for sure.
You're not really sure what your schedule is going to look like, but I was looking at your schedule previously. It looks like you always have a lot of tough non-league games, Tumwater, Skyview, those sorts of teams. Without being able to know, and mainly just a projection, do you hope you're able to still play those teams, or are you thinking maybe it's going to be fully a conference schedule? And if it is fully a conference schedule, how tough do you think the conference is going to be this year?
Well, I don't think we're going to be playing the non-leagues. I scheduled those guys because I knew how tough they are. and the culture is there for those teams, and you get what you sign up for, and that's why we played Skyview and Tumwater last year, because you know what you're getting into, and you know what you're trying to learn from that. And so going into this year, the teams that we had scheduled, unfortunately, because of the length of the season getting reduced, I think the non-leagues are just going to be out the window. I just don't think we're going to play them. As far as the conference itself, the conference will be tough as usual. I just don't know if we'll play the entire schedule. That's the problem with trying to predict that. I don't know if we'd be able to, because in our conference, we have 7 games within our own conference. I don't think they're allotting 7 weeks of conference play. I think it's been reduced down to 6. So how that gets sorted out remains to be seen.
So February 17th is the beginning of pre-practice for football. Do you kind of have a plan in place going forward leading up to that day, or is it just kind of, we'll kind of see how it goes and see how everything happens as it unfolds?
Yeah, no plan in place as of now, because everything's kind of up to the county, and the Department of Health is determining whatever we do. And so, the coaches and the administration here at the school district will love to get back on the field and start planning and start doing things ahead of time. But ultimately, we're at the hands of the Department of Health, and we can't move forward until they allow us to move forward. And so, so it's just a waiting game. I could make a schedule for November, I could make a schedule for January, but it would be useless because they haven't given us the go ahead for anything.
Wanted to get back to personnel real quick. You mentioned some of the guys are going to be stepping in. Do you see that changing your schemes and your game plan at all based on the personnel you have, or do you kind of see it being running the same way as you did last year?
Yeah, I mean, everything will stay the same except the way that we call things. There'll be tweaks here and there. With the quarterback that we had last year, I mean, he was a running back that could throw really, really well. I mean, we could run the option with him, and I mean, there was never a fear like, hey, we can't get this kid hurt, but because it was just in his DNA, man, he could just take off and run, and so we design and have some flexibility within the scheme for us to be able to do that. Now with the quarterbacks coming up, it's not the same. The personnel changes a little bit. So we're not going to design plays where he can just take off and run, or have an option where he just keeps it. Is that wrinkle in the playbook? Yes. Will we design it to where we're calling it 50% of the time? Probably not. You take care of the guys that you got, and you scheme for the players, what they offer you. If you got skill guys, we're going to get them in space and let them catch the ball real quickly and let them run. See if they can run with us. And so the scheme will just be a little bit of flexible, so it will change a little bit, but you'll see a lot of the same formations, a lot of the same, we'll use a lot of the same terminology. Just the execution will be, we'll emphasize things a little bit more than others.
And is that going to be the same on the defensive side of the ball? Do you expect to, do you have a general idea of who's going to be out there, and are you going to try and run maybe mostly base, or how do you see that working out for your defense?
Yeah, I mean, the same concepts, we'll run the same concepts, same terminology, but, every year is a different creature. You're working with a different animal every year. So, if you just don't have the big bodies up front, then you change things a little bit. If you're like, hey, we've got a ton of speed, we got to figure out how to get these, that's what the off season's for. You take a look at your personnel and go, okay, what, do we want a kid standing on the sideline just because the scheme says so? If I got a super athletic kid standing on the sideline, at some point in the situation, you're like, well, that's on us for not getting that kid on the field. And so we like it to where our athletes are on the field. And so we're flexible enough to go, okay, let's make sure that if our athlete's standing on the field, like our really good ones, it's because he's getting a breather. It's not because of the design of the system. And so we make sure that it's flexible enough to do that.
You've been the coach there for 7 years. You've talked about culture with me a little bit. I know it takes time to build culture. Do you feel like the culture for Yelm football is where you want it to be at this point?
Yeah, I'm content but never satisfied. I mean, culture is something that can go away quickly. I mean, it's like as a coaching staff, as a head coach, if I'm not living the culture and breathing the culture, then it can quickly fade away. So it's important that we understand that you can't rest on the laurels of last year's culture. I mean, the amount of work that was put in last year, doesn't really carry over for this year. So the amount of work still needs to be put in. And, you know, when we meet with the kids, we'll talk from day one as if we're meeting them for the first time. It's not like we say, okay, you guys remember last year what we talked about? Now we're just going to move on to this. No, we'll start from day one and talk about, you know, what our culture is all about and what our expectations are and things we're trying to accomplish within it.
And you are a teacher at Yelm, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what do you teach there?
I'm in the weight room all day. So I'm the
Gotcha,
strength coach here. Yep.
So I'll kind of ask this as my last question here. So you do some teaching in the classroom, in the weight room, and you do some coaching and teaching on the football field. How much different is it to teach a student something as compared to coaching one of your players to do something? Is it fairly similar? Are the skills almost the same, or is it a little bit different based on who you're talking to?
It's probably based on who you're talking to, but since you're talking to me, I'll tell you this. I think it's exactly the same. The difference is the kids that want to be there. You know, if I'm teaching a classroom of 30 kids and 75% want to be there and 25% are being forced to be there because they need a PE credit, that changes the way that you approach the aspect. But at the end of the day, it's about teaching and your ability to get your point across. Because at the end of the day, whether you're on the field or the classroom, it's not about what I know. It's about what I can teach and what the kids know. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to play on the field. I don't get to play. I get to call a few plays, which is fun for me, but they're the ones playing. And same in the classroom. At some point, they have to execute what I'm trying to teach them. So ultimately, to get back to the root of your question, I think the teaching is the exact same. You know, you scaffold it a little differently. You know, the level of information that they currently have with the information you're about to give them, and you figure out the best way to get across. And sometimes it's loud and intense, and you need them to know it like really, really fast and get their attention. And other times it's slower. It's more methodical. It's more like put your arm around them, like, hey, man, this is what we're trying to accomplish, you know. And but at the end of the day, it's just teaching.
And I kind of want to piggyback on that a little bit. Is it different because when you're coaching a team, they're all there for one common purpose, whereas in a classroom, it might not be the same for everybody? Is that kind of a factor for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, you know, on the field, for the most part, all those kids want to be there. You know, they want to be there. They're trying to learn. And by them learning, it's getting themselves on the field. Like the faster you learn and the more you know, the faster you can play. And the faster you're going to get on the field, the more playing time you're going to get. And in the classroom, it doesn't work that well. So the idea is like, you know, you have to teach the kids' strength. You got to get them to you got to get to know something about them. You got to get to the inside of what drives them. And I think once you do that in the classroom, you can figure out what drives them. Then you can link the success in the classroom, or in my case, in the weight room, to with their growth. And once they kind of feel themselves growing and understanding the purpose of where they're going, I think that's how they get hooked into like weight training, and it can be a lifelong thing for them.
Excellent. Well, Jason, thank you very much for joining me. Much like your Seahawks shirt there, I want to watch Yelm cook a little bit like Russ did on Sunday.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Really looking forward to seeing you guys back out on the field. And I'm a photographer, so hopefully I'll be out there taking some photos of you.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the time.